Welcome to lesson 82. Today we're going to focus on surface area with triangular prisms and pyramids. So we're going to use the structure of both to write a numerical expression that represents surface area, and we're going to create nests using any of the three dimensions in the drawing. And finally, use this information to accurately calculate the surface area. Let's use the net for the triangular prism to determine the surface area and organize it. So here we go, taking a look at our figure. We can identify the base over here and its same base there at the back. So those two are exactly the same. So to figure out that formula, we know the area is going to be 1/2 times base times height for both of these, because they are exactly the same. So for the sides, we're going to have the side of a triangle and a height. Remember, if this is the bottom, this part over here is going to be the height. So we're going to use that part in there. And so we have a side and a height. Let's put in some actual numbers so we can see what we're working with and try to identify, are any sides exactly the same? Well, let's see if we can actually figure it out using the net. Take a look. Do you notice, and I'm going to zoom in so we can see it a little bit better. I can see this part is 17, this part is 8. So I know this part is also 17, and this part over here is also 8. We also know this side here would be 10, and this side over here would be 10. So that means this part is 10, and this part is 10. So what are you seeing and what are you noticing? Well, I notice that these two sides here have the same dimension. They are both 17 by 10. But our third side is completely on its own. 17 times 8. So we're going to use that to fill out our numbers. So for the first triangle, we have 1/2 times 8 times 6. And notice that this height, although it says height, I'm only using that measurement for the height of that triangle, not the height of the entire piece, which would be the same as this here. And then we have our two congruent sides, 17 times 10 and 17 times 10. And our last part, 17 times 8. Now we can take that and start simplifying it. And so for the first part, we have 8 times 6, which is 48. And we want half of that, so 24. Same thing here, 48, and half of 48 is 24. 17 times 10, that's just 170. And 17 times 8 is 136. So the good thing about this table is it helps keep all our calculations neatly organized. If I didn't have a table, I would just put all of these dimensions in a parentheses and then add them separately. And that's really helpful. Again, we want to keep our work very organized. So let's do our final surface area, and that means adding up all of these components. And I'm going to use my calculator to help us out with this part. So 24 plus 24 I know is 48. 48 plus 340. I added 170 and 170. Plus 136. And that gives me a final area of 524. Hit pause and jot this down into your notes. Let's create a net of this pyramid to complete the table. Now, what do we know so far? We know that the base is a square, and it is an 8 by 8 square. And each side is a triangle, also with a base of 8 and the same height of 9. So just looking at our piece, we know that these four are going to have the same dimensions. That's helpful because instead of doing each operation separately, instead of finding the area of all 5 pieces, which would be length width times 1/2 base height times 1/2 base height, 1/2 base height, 1/2 base height, we're going to be able to simplify that for our square pyramid. Watch what I mean. Let's say we're putting in all our numbers. For the bottom face, it would just be 8 times 8. And for each of the triangles, we know it would be 8 times 9 times 1/2. So that means I could have simplified this. Instead of doing all of them separately, what if we just did 8 times 8 plus 4 times 1/2 times 8 times 9. That's a simpler way for figuring out the surface area. So for the first one, we have it easy. That would just be 64. 8 times 9 is 72. And half of 72 is 36. So 4 times 36. And now let's just simplify the last part. 36 times 4 is 144. So this would be 64 plus 144, which is the same as 208. Let's make sure we have our units. Square inches. But just like in the last prism we had, again, as long as we can identify what the congruent spaces will be, we can simplify our expression. Instead of doing 5 different areas, we can simplify it into one expression that we can easily solve. Hit pause and jot this down into your notes. Now we have another triangular prism, so let's identify what are the parts. Let's make a simple expression for surface area. What parts are congruent? We already know the bases will be the triangular bases. And just by looking at it, we can see these 2 sides will also be congruent. And great thing is we can see very clearly all the dimensions. So let's write out our surface area. We're going to have our triangles 1/2 base height, and we have 2 of them, so we're going to put a 2 in front. We have our 2 sides that are the same, which have a length height. And then our last one by itself, which would just be our length width. All right, let's start substituting those numbers. So 2 times 1/2 times 3 times 8 plus 2 times 20 times 5 plus 20 times 8. Nice and easy ones to work with today. We're going to start with our first parentheses. 3 times 8 is 24. Half of 24 is 12. So we have 2 times 12 plus 20 times 5 is 100. So 2 times 100 plus 20 times 8 is 160. So far, looking at these numbers, I already know my answer is definitely going to be over 260. So just looking at it, I have an idea that we're probably going to eliminate this one here as too large. Let's keep simplifying. 2 times 12 is 24 plus 200 plus 160. And we get 384. So we can definitely rule out our first and our last. They were too large. I had a feeling that was going to be the case. And I always have 2 in the middle. One was our distractor, which was our 372. And this is the one that matches our work, 384. So Math Marvels, big takeaways for today before you hit pause. Just identify when you have a visual, especially a net, identify what sides are going to be the same. And even if you have a 3D model, try and look to see which sides do you know are going to have the exact same dimensions, because you will not be able to see behind the figure in your drawing. So you're going to have to use your knowledge from the front to figure out the dimensions for the piece in the back. That's it for today, Math Marvels. Get more practice with these triangular prisms. I know you can do this. Be well.